Good morning, everybody. So I'm delighted to welcome you today to our celebration of our Energy Launchpad. This is on the back of the recent report that we launched around that really sort of looked through the first 3 years of the work we've been doing with innovators. So today is really a celebration about what we've been doing, and then maybe talking a little bit more about what we're hoping to do in the future. So without further ado, I'll jump straight into my sort of introductory presentation here. I just wanted to sort of set the scene, if you like, and just explain a little bit about who we are. So Beth, if you could just move on to the first slide there, please. So for those that are not familiar with the Catapult network, the Catapults are not-for-profit private sector businesses, and we were set up as well. There is a Catapult network. I should say there's 9 Catapults. We were set up, I think, probably sort of 12 years ago now, with the first Catapult, which was the high-value manufacturing. But there are many others across different sectors, such as satellite applications, offshore renewables, and some of the life sciences, things like cell and gene therapy, etc. But we all really have a common goal, which is to try and help the UK capture the business opportunities in whatever sector we're trying to focus on. And in some of those sectors, like the energy systems, there are many challenges to achieving that business growth and capturing those supply chain opportunities because of the systemic challenges that might be faced. And often that's driven by many drivers and changes that are happening in that space. And I think it's very topical that we're having this event during COP26, because climate change is clearly one of the major drivers behind the change. But we're also seeing many others, such as digitalization, and also the change towards a much more consumer-centric energy system. And so our job really is twofold. Partly it's around trying to help key stakeholders navigate what that future energy system is going to look like, but at the same time make sure that we're helping those innovators capture those opportunities and commercialize within that future energy system. So if I could go to the next slide, please, Beth. So just to mention what we are talking about there in a bit more detail is we've coined this phrase whole systems approach, and when I joined the Energy Systems Catapult coming up to 6 years ago now, this was really something that wasn't that well thought through, I think, within the sector, but you're now seeing many stakeholders really adopting this approach. And what we mean by whole systems is that it's not just about the technology solution. So it's not just about the individual components. It's also about the legacy systems that we've got there. It's also about the linkages between different energy vectors. So whether that's electricity, heat, transport, and how those intertwine and interconnect. But then also, how do you think about the market structure, the policy, the regulation, and most importantly, the consumer right at the heart of that, and how all that comes together, perhaps with new business models and new service propositions in order to ensure that the future energy system can take off. And what we really see is that the innovation opportunities are really coming through in those interconnections. So where those different parts of the energy systems come together, and where the market and policy and business changes are happening, that's where there's some great innovation and great opportunities for the UK. So next slide, please, Beth. So the unique aspect of the Energy Launchpad really was how do we then take that great expertise that we've got, and if you could perhaps maybe just flick through the next one, that's it, thanks, Beth. So how do we take the great capabilities that we've developed that address many of those whole system challenges that I've just talked about? So in things like, for instance, we've got a consumer insights team, digital and data, we've got modeling, etc. So those capabilities and assets that we've developed to help the UK address those whole system, that energy system transition, how do we couple that capability with to best effect to help innovators? But at the same time, we recognize that there's a whole host of great experience and capability already out there in terms of that innovation ecosystem in the UK that already exists with existing experts and advisors or existing accelerators, etc. So what we said is, well, what we could do here is really bring those two together into a sort of a virtual structure where we can get the best of both worlds. So we can help innovators on the one hand address the energy transition with our capabilities, and on the other hand, we can bring in core capabilities from what we call our delivery support network of existing support together with that whole system approach. And that really was the birth of the Energy Launchpad. And that's what we trialed and tested, over 3 years ago now. And we're delighted to see that we've had really good impact. So bringing that up to date to where we are today, then, again, if you could move to the next slide, please. We then said, so we've now run 6 calls, 6 Innovator Challenges, as we call them. And today we've also launched or announced the cohort of the 7th call, which is with our partnership with HSBC and University of Birmingham, which you'll hear more about later. So we've now supported through the Energy Launchpad 56 SMEs. We've got another 13 in the current cohort that's just joining, and across the Catapult we've supported over 190 SMEs in other parts of the Catapult, which is now again increased to well over 210. And so what we did is we said, well, let's go back and have a look at all those SMEs that we've supported and really see, what have they thought about the support that they've got, where have we moved, and what benefits have they gained. And that was the survey work that we did of 42 of the SMEs through the Energy Launchpad work, and then a survey of that broader cohort of SMEs that we supported broadly across the energy systems Catapult. So if you can move to my last slide. So I'm delighted then to say that we were really pleased with the comments back and the feedback from that survey work, and it really showed that at least 96% of 4/5 of the SMEs that have been through the first 5 calls had realised tangible benefits from working with us. So whether that was moving through on their technology readiness levels, or securing new contracts, or raising investment, etc. So that again in itself was really pleasing. And of those, 96% had already realized some of those benefits, or had seen acceleration of benefits that they could see happening in the future. And again, as we're an incubator and accelerator, the fact there was that real focus on acceleration there, that really gave us good confidence that we're really doing the right thing here. We also highlighted that a number of the key areas that I mentioned in that whole system aspect and the energy transition were genuinely being seen as core themes where we were delivering impact. So some of our unique models in things like understanding, building physics, for example, some of the consumer insights work that we were doing that really enhanced the service propositions and the linkage on advanced business models, digital policy insight, etc. It was really good to see that hypothesis that we originally set up of linking our core capabilities in the energy transition alongside the delivery support network was realizing benefits. And then lastly, our 6th Innovator Challenge was very much around international. And although at the time of the survey that was only just really progressing, again, it was nice to see that many of those innovators were already seeing benefit from the international aspects of the Energy Launchpad. And I'm pleased to say that since then, we've seen even further success with some of those innovators in terms of some of the innovators, for instance, securing demonstration projects with clients out in India, for example, and others. So I think that was all I wanted to say really as a starting point, and just to introduce the day. As I say, we're really pleased with way things have gone. We're growing. We're looking forward to further support that we can provide to innovators. And so now, just as I say, this is really a celebratory day and a day of really hearing back from the successes. And I'm delighted that we've got 5 SMEs today to present to you and hear direct from the great innovation that they're developing, but also their experiences of working with us. But before we do that, I'd like to hand over to my colleague, Eric Appleton, who's just going to walk you through a little bit more detail around the Launchpad itself. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul, and good morning, everyone. Nice to be with you this morning and to see so many recognisable faces, or names at least, on the screen here. Thanks for joining us. Yes, I'm just going to briefly walk through, for those, probably mainly for those who don't know much about the Energy Launchpad and the ESC stack, kind of how we structure our incubator accelerator program, and how it's delivering sort of benefit to the SMEs that work with us. So, Beth, if you can skip to the next slide, please. So I think it's probably just worth reminding ourselves kind of how we designed the Energy Launchpad service in the first instance, and there was a lot of research went into what support was available for startups in the energy sector, and effectively what was missing, and realised that although there's a lot of incubator accelerators out there, none of them really provided the sort of bespoke support that businesses innovating in this sector really needed. And when we looked at the sort of key reasons why businesses were failing in the sector, we ensured that we designed the support that we offer around those kind of top failure modes, if you like. So the core capabilities that Paul has just referred to around sort of innovative business models, consumer insights, modelling, access to living labs, market. I think the market focusing investment, readiness capability, and some of the mentoring and sort of connections that can be provided to help build businesses, are all things that sort of incorporated into the program. So I think what we've sort of seen is that model seems to be paying dividends, and it seems to be working. So next slide, please. So the offering is sort of made up of 3 tiers. So we've got our universal tier, which is free to access, and is now mainly accessible through our Energy Launchpad portal, so energylaunchpad.energy if you haven't already signed up. So lots of great free resources that you can access, reports and insights, signposting to other funding opportunities, or access to calls that we might be running, and allowing really the ecosystem to connect with one another. And then we run our incubation and acceleration tiers. So these really are wrapped up into the challenge calls that Paul's referred to, and the 6 that we've run to date, and the 7th we just announced the cohort for. So we address both businesses that are in the sort of incubation stage of their development, as well as those that are starting to sort of scale up their businesses. And the support that is provided is designed to be sort of tailored to specific needs of each of the SMEs that come through the program. And mine and Neil Whitaker, who's on the call here today as well, our role is to kind of ensure that we design those services to meet those specific needs that you have, and ensure we kind of address those challenges, those barriers, and help you speed up the progress of the route towards sort of commercialization and growth. So next slide, please. Yeah, Paul's just done this actually, but what I wanted to show really was the sort of power of the delivery support network. So in fact, the next slide has got a whole range of brands on here, certainly not all of them. We have probably over 50 now actually on our delivery support network. I know Graham is on the call today, so you're seeing Graham Oakes is there. Again, to reiterate, Neil and I's sort of job is really to sort of get to know our delivery support network and find ways to leverage their key skills and capabilities, and match them to the needs of the SMEs. And we've done that, I think, really well in the last couple of years, bringing that specific expert or capability to bear to complement our own internal abilities and expertise. So yeah, let's just give you a bit of a flavour really, but there's many more out there as well that we do work with. Next slide, Beth, thank you. So yeah, I think this is really to show all of the programs that we've run, and I've been with Catapult nearly 3 years now. So I joined just after the pilot had started. So I've sort of seen through from all of IC2 to IC7, and what you can see is we've got a really great sort of alumni now of companies. There's been all sorts of great collaborations between them. We've been able to connect different companies to one another, to find the sort of synergies and opportunities for those businesses to collaborate and grow their own businesses together and in partnership. And we've been able to bring in partners like Places for People to act as as sponsors, but also sort of mentors and places where we can go and test propositions with and find again other ways to collaborate with them, and then we've sort of seen that model grow obviously over the last sort of 3 calls, really, with the Climate Click incubator, which was a lot more place-based. So that was around the West Midlands, and we're doing quite a lot of place-based calls at the moment. The HSBC one is also located in the West Midlands. So we see the benefit of doing that. And our sort of goal is to sort of tap into this alumni and make it work for everybody over the course of the next months and years. And as Paul mentioned, our alumni continues to grow. We've got over 56 that we've directly worked with, and over 200 now that have benefited from some kind of support from the Catapult. So it's a great network to tap into. So next slide, please, Beth. So today you're going to hear from a range of SMEs who've sort of been through the program. They'll talk about some of the direct impact and the way they worked with us to access the specific expertise that we brought to bear. But some of the things that came out in the report that you'll see around the ways we helped them were things like increasing their capabilities, so their skills and ability to pitch their business, their proposition, their innovation, give them additional confidence, increase the opportunity for them to win, to access and win finance. And I think probably one of the things that we see coming through a lot, actually, even at the application stage, is the fact that you sort of connect with the Catapult and our network gives you, enhanced visibility, gives you the opportunity to connect to others in the sector, gives you some momentum, enhances your reputation. So some of the sort of softer elements, I suppose, are almost as valuable, if potentially sometimes more valuable, if you can make the right connection to the right business that gives you that leg up to win some business or to get your first customer. Those things are super important. So I'm going to stop there and let you hear from some of the SMEs that we've got on the agenda today, and you can hear their views directly. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the session.
Thank you, Eric. I should have said at the start as well, please do post any questions that you might have in the chat room. There is the chat room function. We will have a very short bit of time at the end for a bit of Q&A, but we can try to answer any questions that people have, through the chat room. So, as I say, if there is anything you do have that you'd like to raise, then we will try to address that as we go along. So we've now got 5 SMEs that have been through the Energy Launchpad to talk to you today. I'm delighted that they've joined us. And so without further ado, I'll hand over to Joe Miles from Atomate. Are you there, Joe?
I am. I hope you can hear me,
Hi.
Paul.
Yes, I can. Yes, that's great. Yeah. Over to you. Thanks.
All right. No, thank you very much. So, we started with the Energy Catapult a couple of years. I thought I'd start by introducing my business. I hope you've got some slides from us here. So I'm at another conference at the moment. So yes, that's great. Can I have the next slide, please? So I thought just what I do is I just talk about our product very briefly, so you understand what we do, and then some of the benefits of it, and then I talk more specifically about how we've benefited from working with the Energy Services Catapult. So the first thing is a background of the company. Atomate is a kind of spin out of an existing construction and property development company. We specialize in very low energy buildings. We're quite unique, I think, in that we're already energy consultants. So we both SAP and SBEM qualified, and we do TM59, so overheating assessments and such like. So we have a lot of experience in low energy. And Atomate was born because of a frustration to find the right controls which were appropriate for sort of domestic buildings right through to sort of small commercial buildings. And so essentially the market broadly, and still is, I'd argue, is split between sort of smart home type controls, which tend not to offer the power that you need to control a building efficiently, and a BMS, a building management system, which is very expensive and is really the domain of large commercial buildings. So Atomate was set up to fill this gap, and it's something that we're really getting a lot of traction with. So just to discuss the technology here on this diagram, what I'm showing you is we've actually got 4 technologies, and 3 of them are on this slide. So first of all, at the room layer, you can see these green devices. So if you can see my mouse moving around, for instance, this ceiling sensor unit, and here we've got a relay board. And all of these devices, I mean, here there's a pin NFC entry pad type thing, and all of these devices are connected. We use Bluetooth mesh technology. And the big advantage of Bluetooth mesh is that it's very robust, it's very reliable, it's highly secure, and really most importantly, from our point of view, it's easy to retrofit. So it means there's no communication cabling needing around the building. So it means we can go into existing buildings. We can typically take a power supply or something from the lighting circuit or from anywhere, essentially. And quite often with our clients now, we find that we start off by collecting data. So this ceiling sensor unit, for instance, has 10 different sensors in it. So we'd be measuring temperatures, humidity, movement, ambient light levels, vibration, noise levels, volatile organic compounds, carbon dioxide, not sure what everyone, power levels, can't remember what I said, but there's essentially 10 different sensors. And actually it's very easy for us to extend the platform to be used with other, to extend it to other sensors. And then in addition, we have in each of the devices, we also have a gateway. So what that enables us to do is to communicate with other protocols. So clearly in the building industry, there's a lot of existing protocols like air conditioning and such, like typically using Modbus. And then the final thing is that you've got actuators. So the actuator might be a pin entry, it might be a speaker on one of these devices, might be a relay, a relay here to turn on and off the light. So a very, very flexible system, which can be built up slowly. The final thing to sort of say about it, which is quite exciting from our point of view, is there's an increasing amount of Bluetooth technology coming onto the market. And that means that we can integrate with third-party devices. So for here, there's an energy harvesting light switch, which we're using quite extensively because it's considerably cheaper for customers to install this than to our traditional light switches. And by clicking it, you generate a Bluetooth signal. We'd pick up that signal and then turn on the lights or do the required action. Another example might be a window sensor. And again, that can be an energy harvesting device, so no batteries, and you're just collecting that information. I mean, the final piece, particularly with Energy Services Catapult, is that we do a lot of metering. So we talk to all types of metering, and I'll talk about that when I talk about the benefits working with Energy Services Catapult. So that's the first level of technology. So it's actually collecting data and controlling items in the building. The next level then is that we have a local hub, and nowadays that's typically called your edge computer, and that then does more advanced processing. So that's typically, it provides a user interface, and it allows calendarizing and putting things on timers and such like. So more advanced controls. And the second thing it does is it pushes all the information up into the cloud. And then the final bit of technology shown on this slide is that, we have a database on the cloud, and we collect a lot of information, which allows, gives customers a really good idea of how their buildings are running. And, to give you an idea, a domestic house might have, something like 5 million data points a day. So we collect an enormous amount of data off that building. And of course you allow remote access and such like. So, can I go to the next slide, please? So the question is, why do you want this technology? Why do our customers want it? And really, we think there's 5 reasons. So the first reason is around energy. And the second one is around sort of wellness. Thirdly, maintenance. Fourth, security and management. So just to dive into those a little bit more detail, or particularly energy. So we've had some real success by actually looking at different mechanical systems, by combining the knowledge that we have on building physics and how buildings, heat up, how they cool down, how you ventilate them, how you provide hot water. We've actually shown that we can provide in a new build compliant with Part L building, we can actually put in mechanical electrical systems, which are about half the price of a typical developer, what a developer would typically spending, and then we will outperform any comparable mechanical electrical services. And we've done a year-long study of Oxford Brookes University, which is on our website, and it sort of shows some of the technology we use. We have trials with quite a lot of people going on at the moment, including people like the Army, looking at both their new build and retrofit. So we're really on the cutting edge of how you control, and how you not only control, but how you use advanced controls coupled with alternative mechanical systems to improve both new and existing domestic building and also commercial building. So, we're working with people like Lang O'Rourke and doing quite a few of their off-site sort of construction projects. So it's really exciting in the energy piece. The wellness piece is obviously grown a lot since COVID, and so it covers a whole range of things, but predominantly air quality. And because we've got a lot of air quality measurements are sort of natively in our system, we can report back on that. And again, that gives lots of insights to customers. Maintenance, we know in real time, if you click a light switch, we'd expect to see a change in ambient light level in that space. If there's no change in light level, then we know there's a problem, and that's similar for any other service in the building. Security speaks for itself. We've also got a project with the BRE looking at elderly care and particularly dementia patients, and we're involved in the BRE site and using the same technology for that, but a range of projects there. And then finally around building management. And so this is really in its infancy for us, but the advantage of using Bluetooth is you can actually track devices and phones and tags around the building. So you can put a tag on a Hoover and you can see the cleaners work their way around the building. If you're in one of our customers has primary healthcare clinics, you could track oxygen cylinders and such like. So that's just a little bit about us. And so it's the technology we've developed, the knowledge we've got existing in building physics, and the applications we see for this technology, which we're just really beginning to exploit now. So next slide, please. So so really I just wanted to talk about the benefits that we've had being involved with the Energy Systems Catapult. So particularly one of our big challenges is that SAP doesn't like direct electrical heating. And the Energy Catapult's paid for some time with a consultant to help us explore ways that we can challenge the regulations, and that's really just starting. We had a very useful call. One of our big clients had a number of metering problems, and the whole metering thing is quite difficult to get your head around. And again, through Eric, he put us in contact with a metering expert in the Energy Services Catapult, and it was only a 2-hour call, but it really helped us, in terms of we reading this documentation, which was just impenetrable, and 2-hour call kind of moved it forward. We've had some external consultants come and look at our business plan and look at our business model, and while they didn't really come back with anything particularly groundbreaking, I mean, I think there's two benefits. One, it gave us a lot of confidence, and it showed that we were moving in the right direction. And the second thing is it actually gave us some really good introductions, and off the back of that, we've got some new business, which is quite exciting. And then on the marketing side, there's been some general stuff about the Home Truths Panel, a couple of reports from them. And actually, we're going to have another project with the Energy Service. We just found out just last week that we've got funding for another project, really to understand our consumers better using the Home Truth Panel. So we're really excited about starting that. And then generally, we've been working with Eric, who's been fantastic. Really useful to sort of bounce stuff off, talk things around. He's been really helpful in talking to some of our clients. And that gives us credibility, because as a small company, it's very difficult to, when you're talking to these, FTSE 250 type companies, FTSE 100, you've got to lean on as much support as you can get to get credibility with those type of customers. So, that's me really. That's I hope that's what you wanted. Quick overview of who we are and the benefits we've had working with you guys. So thank you very much.
No, thanks, Joe. That was great. And as with all the SMEs, we've really enjoyed working with you as well. It's very much a partnership, and great to see the progress that you're making. So thank you very much for that. So Christine, hopefully you're there too. So we'll now hear from Energy. So over to you, Christine.
Hi everyone, I hope you can hear me and see me. Can you see the screen? Or to see?
Yeah, we can see that, right, Christine. Yeah.
It's not in presentation view yet, is it?
Not yet, no.
Hold on. Move this out of the road. Oh, for God's sake. Bear with me, please. Fine.
There we go.
Yeah. Everybody can see presentation view now.
Yeah, it's coming through. I think as
it's full slide. Oh, hold on.
There we go.
Good.
Thanks, Christine.
You'd think after 2 years I'd be a bit faster. So morning everyone, Christine Boyle, CEO of Synergy, and lovely to be here on a sunny solar morning to talk about solar thermal. So Synergy about 4 or 5 years ago realised that there would be a huge opportunity for solar thermal for both heating and cooling over the next 10 to 20 years. And this was verified when the Green Homes Grant came out last year, and of the new carbon heat measures installed under the scheme, more than 60% of all of the installations were actually solar thermal, more than any other low carbon technology, including heat pumps. So the general public obviously like solar thermal and understand the technology. They understand that it provides up to 4 times more savings and self-consumption per square metre of collector than PV does. And that it saves up to 10 times more CO2 per square metre as well. But unfortunately, solar thermal panels are still made of glass, copper and aluminium. They're very high cost and they're very high carbon to manufacture. So we decided that we would use advanced materials and advanced manufacturing to lower the cost and lower the carbon of solar thermal panels and bring the technology into the 21st century. We secured BES EFF, Energy Entrepreneurs funding, and we set out with a commercialization plan to try and get solar heating more affordable, more reliable, and more sustainable. And we had a huge task ahead of us 3 years ago. We needed to raise our seed investment round. We needed to build out the team to deliver our plan. We needed to finalise product design. We needed to scale manufacturing. We needed to secure early customer pilot projects. We wanted to demonstrate the software-enabled hardware, so putting sensors in the panels and looking at how we could use those sensors connected into a heating system to provide a heating as a service business model. We wanted to clarify the Synergy carbon value proposition, which was very important going forward into the market. And then obviously we needed to get to the stage of sales, as every new innovative startup has to. And where the Energy Systems Catapult came into place, we were in the second cohort of the Energy Launchpad incubator program. And they really helped us with the early customer pilot projects and looking at that cost value proposition. So we had their internal expert teams, the modelling team who looked at simulation modelling, even before we went to design and manufacture of the product, looking at the performance of the product and what it could actually do. And that cost value proposition work was really, really valuable to us before we spent any money on manufacturing. The business modelling team came and looked at what our actual route to market was. And it wasn't just the actual manufacturing of the product and the technology. It was how we were actually going to get that product into the hands of installers who were then going to have to integrate it into heating systems and then out into the building owner and the end user, which is the customer on the ground. And that whole business model, we discovered through the Energy Systems Catapult, the use of digitalization and data could really, really help get these products to market, that it wasn't just the technology, but it was the use of digitalization and data that would help us and enable customer adoption. So the modelling team helped us look at our value proposition in terms of comparing Synergy panels to not just baseline oil and gas, but also current thermal panels on the market, and then obviously rooftop PV. So we had a huge kind of customer competitive advantage to look at, and the Energy Systems Catapult were able to look at how we would compete with all of these other technologies. And that involved really detailed simulation modelling that we would never have the in-house capability to have done ourselves. In terms of PV, which is the obvious competitor for us, we needed to prove that using PV into expensive battery storage, into electric boiler, into the heat was definitely not going to be as efficient as using solar thermal directly into low-cost thermal storage and into heat into buildings. And that value proposition and determining that and clarifying that was extremely valuable to Synergy, and the Energy Systems Catapult enabled us to do that. Demonstrating the software-enabled hardware and heating as a service, the information that we got from the Energy Systems Catapult, we were able to then bring back to the high-value manufacturing Catapult in terms of how we would install the sensors into our panels and capture that data. They also opened us up to other data companies. So in terms of how we would, there wasn't any point of Synergy reinventing the wheel. There were other innovative companies that we could actually collaborate with and work alongside and integrate this heating as a service business model and showcase that. And that's something we're currently working on. And basically our end game is to use data and digitalization to maximize the collection through our Synergy panels, to optimize the supply through the system, and to basically the end game is to deliver the lowest cost of kilowatt heat. And I suppose this is what we've done to date. We've looked at our business model innovation, the customer insight and the value proposition, and whole system modeling. What does that complete integrated heating system look like for Synergy? Going forward, we'd like to look at more testing and demonstration in terms of the living labs, and getting that real life data, which is extremely important. Markets and policy regulation is extremely important, particularly because solar thermal is always up against PV, and yet it's really like comparing apples and oranges. So absolutely working closely with policy and regulators in terms of how we bring our innovation to market is extremely important, and we see the value of the Catapult enabling us to do that. And then harnessing the data that we collect is extremely important in terms of our business model going forward, and that heating as a service business model that we have a vision of delivering. We're hoping to continue working with them to clarify our carbon value proposition, which is going to be even more important in the future than the cost value proposition as we secure contracts. And I suppose the Energy System Catapults enable us to drive to showcase how we drive down cost and drive down carbon, which is the most important thing for Synergy. And going forward, this is what we want to look at in terms of showcasing the impact that we would have on Belfast City. There are 4,000 buildings that are currently relying on oil heating. We see these as real low-hanging fruit. And transferring those buildings to using Synergy heating would save those customers £144 million over the next 20 years, 6 billion tonnes of carbon, and create 12,000 new jobs. And if the Energy Systems Catapult can help us show the impact on Belfast City, surely we can then extrapolate that benefit out into other cities in the world. And then hopefully we can leverage their support in terms of their industry collaborations to go forward with sales, which is the absolutely most important thing for any startup. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christine. That's really helpful. Yeah, and again, it's great to see the progress that you've made after being one of the early cohorts. It's been quite a journey, and it's great to see progress, especially through the current challenges of COVID and what have you. So lovely. So I'll now hand over to Johnson Fernandes from Equiwatt. Hi, Johnson.
Hey, Paul. Great. Okay. Onto the first slide, please. Hi, everyone. My name is Johnson Fernandes. I'm the founder and CEO of Equiwatt. It's a great delight to be presenting Equiwatt in the SME Showcase. Paul, yes, rightly said, it's a celebrity event for the Catapult, and it's amazing to see the amount of support the Catapult has done to SMEs. Equiwatt has definitely benefited massively through the Energy Launchpad program, and I'm delighted to be sharing some of our progress as well as our partnership with the Catapult over the last couple of years, and how, where we are on to so far. So I've got some slides just on the overview of EquiWatt in terms of what do we do, what's the problem we're solving, and how we are innovative and solving a massive challenge, followed by a few slides on the impact that the Catapult has had on our company over the last 18 months. To begin, about EquiWatt. Our company was founded with the vision of making clean energy more affordable and accessible. All of us are aware of the urgency of the climate agenda and how we all as a community need to do better to further accelerate towards net zero. One of the things majorly that we found was people wanted to do something for the environment, but they found it quite inaccessible, and that's something EquiWatt wants to champion. We want to make it really easy for consumers in the home and in businesses embrace clean energy more rapidly so that we can accelerate. EquiWatt chose residential demand-side response. I'm a huge fan of demand-side response. The concept of demand-side response is simply when everyone else is using more energy, a portion of us use less energy so that we can avoid the grid turn on dirty peaking power plants. Alternatively, when there is excess renewable energy in the grid, or there are periods of low renewable energy, we can shift energy demand from those periods to periods where there is abundant renewable energy. That's the area that EquiWatt is in, and as you can see, it's a massive untapped opportunity. As great as the idea sounds, implementing it is quite hard, and that's why EquiWatt exists. On to the next slide, please. So addressing the challenges first, consumers, the major problem why residential demand-side response is quite difficult to implement at homes and has been, is because of poor engagement in energy. According to the WPD, research states that consumers are missing out on 50% reduction on their energy bill purely because of poor engagement. Furthermore, from the energy provider's point of view, due to that lack of positive engagement and technology, there are challenging market conditions for energy suppliers. Just in 2021 alone, and over the last 4 months, we've seen over 15 domestic energy suppliers have gone out of business. It's a really sad state for the supply business, and the industry is just recovering, and something needs to be done about this, and EquiWatt seems to be perfectly poised to help both these consumers. On to the next slide, please. So our solution to this is what we call a community-powered virtual power plant. Simply, we get people to collectively turn off their appliances at peak times, or turn on demand at off-peak times when there is abundant renewable energy. We help energy companies through that mechanism of creating a virtual energy store of these energy appliances to avoid costly dirty power or embrace cheaper forms of power, and so much so that there is an incentive that energy companies are able to pass on to consumers, and we manage that whole process. The impact of EquiWatt in 1,000 homes is there on the slide. We are able to reward consumers up to the value of 28.5 pounds per year on an average, but our impact can go anywhere from up to 120 pounds per year, depending on the sort of appliances and devices consumers connect in the home. With the current state of the market, that's the available opportunity. But as technology integration increases, as we get more and more smart devices, the values of that reward to consumers in the home will just grow. On to the next slide, please. So from this slide onwards, I'm going to be speaking about some of the impact that the Catapult has had. So firstly, for any startup, I think, identifying what our value proposition is, validating that and being confident about it and taking that to market is the first primary step. So we started off in the Energy Launchpad about late 2019, early 2020 phase. At that point, EquiWatt was in about 100 homes, and we had some early traction with users, but we but for our concept to work, we needed to take our solution out to 1,000+ users at scale to demonstrate our solution. So so the Catapult through a business model innovation exercise where the Catapult recruited an external consultant who was very much a thought leader as well as an expert in energy tech startups, had worked through us, and the business model innovation piece also worked with the consumer insights team, where the value proposition was validated both from a consumer perspective as well as the energy supply perspective. So one of the major benefits of this exercise was that we were able to validate what's the one thing that's really important for EquiWatt, and what's the one thing that we should focus, because as you launch a product to market, there are several things that you need to optimize on, and we were able to identify what is our strongest proposition and a differentiator in the market, and develop that to the massive extent so we can have the best chance of success in the market. So I would say that that was one of the greatest values we've got through the Energy Launchpad program. On to the next slide, please. Secondly, this is also related to the value proposition. So an example of one of the research that the consumer insights team had done with the Home Truths panel. So our proposition was, and our consumer messaging was surveyed with over 200+ homes, and we got a range of data in terms of what are the type of consumers who would adopt EquiWatt, what are the barriers for us for EquiWatt to be embraced in the home, and what is we are targeting homes with an environmental focus as well as a budget conscious. What portion of those target market would actually be mapped out to be ready to embrace EquiWatt? So that was really great for us, and this work combined with, so this was a quantitative analysis. We also have done a qualitative analysis. Moving on to the next slide, please. So So the qualitative analysis was done with a group of about 10 to 20 homes, where our app, which is a consumer-facing proposition, was tested on real users with a very detailed focus. And this particular exercise was really important for us because as I mentioned earlier, we had to take our solution from 100 homes to 1,000 plus. It gave us, as well as the investors that we were going to work with, the additional confidence that our product and our app is ready to go to the next stages of accelerating a solution. So that was amazing. And in addition to that, our tech stack, as you can see, it's not just an app. We've got a virtual power plant software in the background and an IoT platform. We benefited from a digital fitness assessment test, which helped the company through the next stages of actually growing our solution with more and more technology integrations, as well as prioritizing which of the various scale-up opportunities in terms of technologies available for EquiWatt, and it helps us be razor-sharp focused so that we can maximize impact within the short span of time. Moving on to the final slide, please. So I've mentioned this before. So we started with in the Energy Launchpad with about 100 homes. So we are in 2,000 plus homes at the moment. One of the first impact of the Catapult during the Energy Launchpad program was we secured over 300,000 pounds of investment in about mid 2020, August 2020, and it was quite a difficult time to raise investment, and I felt and we had the Catapult working side by side to provide that additional independent assessment, as well as some form of digital fitness test, which added some value to the investment pack. Furthermore, in terms of getting a solution from 100 homes to 1,000 home to 2,000 homes, we had a sort of a framework in terms of validated consumer messaging, as well as app usability assessment, which helped us improve our service offering to consumers as well as the energy market, and we were able to take that out to market. And also we were able to map up and prioritize further development of the EquiWatt solution. As you can see, we were able to prove huge engagement of our app combined with launching new services to the market. So we have an EV app which is in trial at the moment, and so through this process, EquiWatt is at the stage where we are very close to trading, and we wouldn't have been able to accelerate this fast without the support of the Catapult. Great. I think that's it from my side.
That's great. Thank you, Johnson. And again, I think this is a really good example of how, what I was saying at the start around some of those capabilities that we've developed to try and fill some of those gaps in the energy transition are really being used to great effect here on some of these new solutions in areas like demand side response, etc. So yeah, again, really great to see the progress you guys are making. So let's move on quickly on to the next one. So Kenny, I see you there. Great. So over to you, Kenny. Thanks.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So I am Kenny Cameron, Managing Director and co-founder of Connected Response. And you could next slide, please. Our core business, as you can see in the small type at the top there, is focused on the 1.5 million households that have existing electric storage, heating and hot water systems. An area that is quite boring to some, but is where our passion lies. And our focus is trying to improve comfort, reduce consumption, which normally means reducing bills as well, not necessarily at the moment, and helping people to be pulled out of fuel poverty, but at the same time, decarbonising heat. The picture you see there is Glasgow, my home city, where the world is gathered at the moment. And the picture was taken from a 16th floor tower block window to try and get a feel for the 130 tower blocks that Glasgow Housing Association alone have in Glasgow. And that's not counting probably another 30 that are owned by smaller organisations. And that's the city in which we've moved from being a startup that was feeling our way around towards business as usual. We've started installing in the 10,000 flats in Glasgow at a rate of 50 a week. So we're into the real world now. Next slide, please. But what I realised over many years of doing this is that it doesn't matter how good your product is. Often you're trying to deal with industry barriers that are there. So I wanted to fire some quick questions at you to show some of these barriers, which are either historic or political or economic. So first of all, why are there still 1.5 million consumers in Great Britain who are on Economy 7 night charging tariffs? Why do we still pretend to these customers that electricity is very cheap at night and expensive in the daytime when clearly it's not? Why do consumers who are on Economy 7 pay 20% more for their electricity than their dual fuel neighbours? Why do these consumers still rely on having to plug in expensive, high carbon intensive electric fires and fan heaters when their stored heat is dissipated, that which they've taken during the night? Why have 90% of consumers in some DNO areas still never been able to switch supplier? Why have governments and the regulator not done anything about this problem? Why haven't energy suppliers come up with fairer tariffs for the most fuel poor households? Why have suppliers also focused primarily on middle class customers with electric vehicles and batteries? And what can we do to address all these inequities, and how quickly can we do that? Next slide, please. So we're trying to address 40 years of wrong, 40 years of heating heaters at the wrong time, because there's nothing wrong with storage heating, but there's lots wrong with charging it, as you can see on the left, during the night. And in Scotland in particular, from starting to charge at 11:30 at times to suit the electricity industry, never to suit the consumer. The result of that is people have a poor experience. They're twice as likely to be fuel poor. And the common complaint is you wake too hot in the morning, but you're always cold in a winter's evening. Next slide, please. What we do in a multi-dwelling unit environment is we install a smart controller in each flat, typically on the meter board near the smart meter, a temperature and humidity sensor in the living room, and in the building, a communications gateway that communicates within the building using a Zigbee mesh network and to our cloud-based servers, so that we have the ability, as you can see in the bottom right, to give people a customized heating experience, charging them according to when they want to be warm, which is a unique experience for these customers, tracking their actual living room temperature, and also tracking the local weather forecast for Glasgow or London or wherever we happen to be working. We have the option, and we do it on some projects, to track local or national renewable energy. And we also work with a supplier to track wholesale prices on a particular project. So there's many different things we can do with existing resources rather than ripping them out and consigning them to landfill. Next slide, please. This is a snapshot from our dashboard for a couple of customers in Glasgow to show that regardless of how good your technology is, if you can't persuade the residents to change their behaviour, then it means nothing. So this is somebody at the top here who, over a 7-day period, is still using supplementary heating. They're still plugging in electric fires when they're cold, but the temperature in the room fluctuates wildly because they put the fire on when they think they can't afford to keep it running. They switch it off, and they're paying a very high tariff to do so. In the bottom, we're charging people no longer at 11:30. We're charging them from about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. So we back end load that charging, and as soon as we can, we get people onto an economy 10 tariff. That means we can also give them a cheap charge in the afternoon at a much lower tariff. In fact, for many people, even lower than the 13 pence that's quoted there. So it's not just technology, it's behavioural change as well. Next slide, please. So our social housing business model, I'm just going to briefly talk about that. We have the hardware manufactured by a partner in Manchester. It's our design. We install and design the communications network in the buildings, and we provide a support contract to the landlord over the years to follow to optimise the heating, to pay for the comms and the server costs, and to be there at the end of the phone, either for landlord or resident, to adjust their heating for them. We train the landlord's contractor, normally in-house contractors, and surprisingly, many people think we're crazy for doing this. We manage all the resident engagement. So every day we're making appointments, we're cancelling appointments, we're rearranging appointments, but we know that that's the best way because we are persistent enough to talk to people door to door or over the phone at weekends and nights to make sure that we get people to embrace what we're doing for them. And right from the beginning, we chose to be supplier and aggregator agnostic. Next slide, please. We've enjoyed working with the Catapult team over the last 12 months or so. And the sort of things this has helped us with is to understand what our consumers really want. Everyone thinks they understand their customer. And we think we're pretty good at that, but it was very good to work with the consumer insight team and to get them to start talking to customers and give us sometimes answers and behaviours that we maybe hadn't identified. We also had great support in terms of a market study commissioned by the Catapult to help understand the landlord motivations and the different motivations that related to different building types. We also had a very good session with the Stronger Stories team, as it's called, to help us to be good at telling a story, but to recognise that the story you tell to a market collaborator may be different to the one you tell to potential investors, and giving us some education in what makes a good story, the essential components of heroes and villains, so that we can persuade our target customer to be the hero and to do something different. But also the spin-off benefit we've had is to meet and work with other like-minded companies, some of whom are on the call, people that we met through collaboration with the Catapult and been able to continue that collaboration direct between the organisations. So we've had a great experience working with the Catapult and would highly recommend it to anyone else that's thinking about applying.
Thanks, Kenny. Really great, and a ringing endorsement there, which we love. So thanks. Great. So we'll move on to our last SME of the day. Move on to Ampex. So Irene, I saw you were there. Great to have you.
Yes, great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
You should be able to see my screen now.
Yeah, that's come through. Excellent.
Okay, so I'm going to be talking to you about a little bit about AMPEX, which I've been leading for the past 2 years, established as a fully owned subsidiary of the AMP Solar Group, and it's a UK-based company with a reach also across Europe. Our employees are now at about 50, and we've been very pleased to be working with the Energy Systems Catapult. But before I go into the detail of what we've been doing, I just wanted to give you a quick overview of what our mission and what our vision is. So we basically founded AMPEX on the premises of wanting to address the challenges of the energy transition and eventually coming up with a portfolio of products that are able to pave the way to a new grid as we think of it. Specifically a grid that can be resilient, that can be clean, sustainable, secure, and affordable, because as we know, cost is at the center of the efforts of network operators, system operators, and all the stakeholders like ourselves on this call. And digitalization has been really at the core of what AMPEX does, and the solutions that AMPEX has been developing. And the reason for that is that we do see an enormous amount of digitalization that has been increasingly more so at the edge of the grid, where thanks to smart technologies and smart meters, we're now able to really see grid dynamics. And thanks to the advanced processing of data, we're able to identify ways to provide solutions, especially to increase the level of flexibility on grid, and ultimately to have a decentralized control architecture that moves away from the reliance on central command and allows decisions to be taken locally, decisions to be taken at various many nodes at the edge of the grid. My peers before me have been all talking about several things that resonate with what AMPEX does, and AMPEX thinks of essentially harnessing flexibility from a various number of sources that either consume or provide energy from the very, very edge. And decentralizing control is absolutely at the heart of our solutions as we see it. So what we've been doing is developing a disruptive data platform that we call the aggregation management platform that essentially caters for a number of interoperable products. You see that we've got a smart transformer, and that's a piece of hardware infrastructure that is about to go live on the distribution network in the UK, also addressing a number of challenges around the penetration of distributed energy resources, but we're not going to focus on that today. We're rather going to focus on virtual power plant behind the meter. We are live with a virtual power plant in front of the meter on a number of storage and solar assets of AMP in North America. But what we've been working on, especially with the Catapult, is our solution behind the meter, because we're a great believer that there's not going to be an energy transition that fully delivers on its solutions unless there is the ability to really unlock flexibility from the very edge, and that includes behind the meter residential and commercial users. So as we think of demand side management at a very large scale, we have been working on what we've named Alice, our digital energy assistant, that we have come up with as a solution to really move away from the reliance on behavior of human beings that we know is not going to be consistent over a length of time. And it's, on the other hand, it becomes a hurdle in order for us to be able to deliver reliable solutions when it comes to provide flexibility to the grid. So ALICE stands for Agent for Lifestyle-Based Intelligent Control of Energy. And there's a schematic here on the slide that shows you that basically Alice is housed is cloud connected, and is housed on a behind the meter box, a small piece of hardware that goes into people's premises, and Alice maps out the ecosystem behind the meter. It becomes aware of what's within its surrounding, whether it's a source of consumption or a source of generation. It then interfaces and engages in a positive manner, in a manner to actually relieves and helps and facilitate the behavior of the user, and ultimately earns trust from the user in order to get delegation and control of a number of appliances, a number of sources of consumption or generation, so that there is an optimal scheduling and an optimal dispatch of those sources in order to provide flexibility to the grid on one side, responding to the challenges of the grid at certain times of day, especially during peak times of consumption, but also delivering benefits to the user in terms of energy savings. And again, I very much align and very much resonate with what some of my peers have been talking about before me. So the way Alice works, it finds out from the user what the preferences are around habits, around usage of specific appliances. It provides recommendation. It reports back also to the user so that he basically gives visibility of the benefits that have been gathered and harnessed through that delegation of optimal scheduling. It provides notifications around relevant events, and then taking that into account both from a user preferences point of view and combining that with the understanding of grid. Alice essentially stipulates SLAs locally with a number of many nodes that exist in the house, and is able to provide on one side grid benefits, on the other side benefits to the users. And the most important thing is that the ability to really unleash a level of flexibility from behind the meter that we see, as I said before, as imperative in order to address the challenges of the networks. So we have worked on an app and a user app, which I'm showing you the user interface here. You can see there's an avatar, which essentially is the way to speak to the user from Alice, and a number of performance cards that you see represented here. They provide information on the cost and the savings of energy, the CO2 that has been saved, the overall consumption of the house. And that way the user is absolutely engaged and kept aware, and the user can then go down to a level of individual tasks and individual appliances, of which again Alice provides a view as to what's happening at that point in time. If there's a task which has been scheduled in agreement both with the preferences, but also with the, for instance, a tariff that may be changing over time, dynamic tariff, because one of the things that this technology is poised to address is the challenges around not so much the dual time tariffs, but the tariffs which are much more dynamic, like agile type tariffs that impose a change every half an hour that cannot be relied on to be followed and adhered to by users due to their inconsistency in behavior over time. So this is the typical UI around each of the different nodes, and you can see that if there is generation with rooftop solar, the user will be able to see what is being actually saved, what's being generated, the CO2 that is saved, the energy produced, but the same goes for battery or other appliances that consume electricity in turn. And we've also developed the same to cater for electric vehicles. And obviously with electric vehicles, the source of view is different because the user will want to know how long that charge is going to last in terms of distance that the car can go on and what time it would be optimal, according to Alice's suggestion, to charge the car, what the cost would be, and when it would actually be green enough to do so. So we started engaging in order to deploy this technology and learn more in order to inform our product development for this very offering, Alice, with the Energy Systems Catapult about a year and a half ago. And we've been absolutely honored to be working with them and pleased because as the other peers before me have said, the level of support that we've got and the reach beyond the actual skill base of Ambex has been tremendous. And so three main areas, three main pillars we actually worked on with Catapult. One was to make us understand how market works, to make us understand how regulatory changes could affect in a positive or even adverse manner what we are thinking of, the vision that we have around this product. I found incredibly helpful to work with them on business model innovation because they were able to give us a very broad view and actually detailed of competitors in the space, of how others are approaching these same challenges that we're trying to resolve and how we could actually engage with some adjacent peers. And indeed, we came across some of the ones on this call. And very importantly, they also helped us understand how data could be used. And we were particularly interested in users' insights, consumer insights, and the behavior and the approach and the way of perception of the user around our product. So it was very broad and very useful. Today we are live, having started a few months ago, into the living lab of the Energy Systems Catapult. We've got about 60 users that are trialing our technology, our Alice, in their homes. Currently active, we've got about 40 users. We are working with monitoring, but also scheduling a number of appliances. You see here some stats on the screen, and you see that the ecosystem is the one typical of a home, but with the added benefit of the presence of EVs, because as we know, they're poised to become tens of millions by 2040, and they will be a source of consumption, but equally a source of possible flexibility from the edge of the grid. We've been scheduling tasks, so we've been having a positive response from users. They are happy to delegate to Alice their energy consumption and their optimization of cost around even the charging of EVs, which has recently started with some of them. And you can see on the far right how then Alice informs the users and hopefully rewards the users for having used Alice in terms of savings. And we've had some significant ones, especially where there is adherence to dynamic tariffs around, in the presence of big loads like EVs. If I were to highlight and emphasize where the Catapult has been absolutely invaluable, especially through the Living Lab trial so far, is the ability for them to really be the intermediary with the users. They've helped us by both informing our thinking during the UI development, even before the Living Lab trial started. And as it started, they've been key in providing us insights and feedback about the users on how they thought the onboarding process was with our product. And they're helping us indeed throughout with more feedback, and they will be the ones that ultimately give us a view at the end of this trial on how exactly this product was received, how beneficial the user felt it was, and that will absolutely inform our direction of travel on future development for AMP-X with this particular offering. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Catapult, which has been a tremendous team to work with, and thank you for giving me the chance to tell you more about AMP-X this morning.
Thanks, Irene. Much appreciated, and it's been great as well having AMP-X to sort of show the linkage between what we do in the Energy Launchpad and the work that we do in the Living Lab, and the fact that the two teams have been working really closely together on those trials has been really good. And I'd like to certainly see more of that as we grow more of the Living Lab and we grow more of the Energy Launchpad. We do see more and more opportunities to bring that incubation support alongside the testing support. So thank you to all of the SMEs there. I think that gave a really great overview, not only of the fantastic innovation that's being developed there and the progress that they've made, but also a flavour of, how we've done a little bit of help along the way there, and we're keen to see more of it. So I want to make sure we do have time to have a little bit of Q&A, and time's a little bit tight. I'm not going to talk for too long around sort of the next phase of the Energy Launchpad, because I want to get on to introduce Neil Whitaker, our other incubation manager, who's going to just introduce the current program that we're doing with HSBC, our climate innovation platform. So just a little bit of words around what goes next, really. So I think the first thing to say is that we any of the innovators that come through the Energy Launchpad, as they graduate from the incubator and accelerator, we do move them into what we call our alumni group, and we also now have an online portal where we also try to foster collaboration and further engagement through that medium. But the alumni group is a way in which we do want to maintain contact with all of the innovators that we work with, because there are frequently opportunities that come up, whether that's future events or masterclasses, or perhaps access to funding events and pitch fests and these sorts of things that we constantly want to make sure that you have access to. And there's often also collaborative R&D type programs that may come up where we perhaps can work together on a follow-on phase of activity with our innovators into those future schemes. And that really was where I wanted to sort of just talk about in terms of the next phase of the Energy Launchpad, and just talking from a big picture for a second, is that we do recognise in the UK that although funding is tight to some extent given the challenges that we've had with COVID, the government is pushing a lot of funding into net zero. We know that BEIS has now got the £1 billion net zero innovation portfolio. We know also that there was the recent announcements of the innovation strategy with Innovate UK and the comprehensive spending review, where there's further money progressing to Innovate UK. And there is still this desire for the UK to get to 2.4% of GDP into innovation by 2027. So we know that funding is going to be flowing this way. We know that net zero is a key focus for the UK, and that couldn't be more stark right now with COP26. So in that respect, we're expecting there to be a lot more opportunities for us to work together and a lot more funding there to try and really move into where we want to focus a lot more with our Energy Launchpad is really scale up. So we recognize that there's a huge amount of innovation there, but really it's how do we now really get into scaling up that innovation and really starting to delve into the unblocking of those barriers to scale. And as I say, that's where a lot of the work from things like our Living Lab come into play, where you can now trial solutions at large scale with real people in real homes. And that's a way in which we can start to bring innovators closer to market. And as I say, hopefully unblock some of those issues to scale and further commercialization. I also, and this is sort of the segue, I guess, into Neil, we also see a lot of opportunities on the regional side of things. We're doing a lot of work in the West Midlands at the moment on the back of some of the work that you'll hear about in a minute around sort of Tyseley Energy Park and the work the University of Birmingham has been progressing. But we do want to see where we can work more on a regional basis as we grow as well. We see opportunities not just in other parts of England, but also even in the devolved administrations as well, with the great work that Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland are all doing in terms of pushing the net zero agenda. So we're looking forward to embarking on that further journey of the Energy Launchpad, perhaps potentially on a more regional basis as well, and again looking at that sort of scale up side of things. So that's all I wanted to say right now around the sort of next phase. And I think, Neil, if you're there, I think it'd be good to now just talk a little bit more about some of those regional aspects and the great announcement that we've got today around the next cohort of SMEs that are coming into the Energy Launchpad. And then after that, hopefully we'll have a little bit of time for quick Q&A.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Paul, for that introduction and summary of where we are. And equally, I'd just like to thank the SMEs who have presented today and to show some of the impacts that the Catapult has had and our incubation challenge through our incubation challenge calls. I want to spend 10 minutes today just introducing you to the Climate Innovation Platform, which is a partnership that has been developed by Birmingham University with HSBC and the Catapult. And if we can just move on to the next slide, please, Beth. Thank you. The previous work that was being talked about by Eric earlier this morning on our incubation challenges has been really has been brought forward to building this particular innovation platform with the university. This particular program is a 4-year program sponsored by HSBC. It's a program which has been in development for approximately about 6 to 8 months now, and really seeks to bring together the Energy Systems Catapult's net zero skills, the research knowledge which sits within the University of Birmingham, and it's a great national asset in some of the research work it does. Bringing in partners, and in this instance I'm thinking here of the Tyseley Energy Park, and I'll talk a little bit more about Tyseley in a moment, and of course bringing in HSBC, who will be working with us throughout this program to support introducing SMEs to some of their clients, particularly in the West Midlands. I'd just also like to differentiate a little bit between our previous programs and this one. This one is a physical and a virtual service. So we're building an incubation centre at Tyseley where SMEs can relocate and draw upon the great assets that the Tyseley Energy Park operates. What I would just also add is that the climate programme, which HSBC has asked us to look at, is quite a broad programme. It covers multiple thematic areas. It looks at the circular economy, it looks at waste from energy, it looks at energy generation, it looks at smart buildings and smart cities, some of the application areas or market areas of transport, buildings, industrial heat. So we're been quite ambitious in terms of the areas that we want to cover. But over the 4 years of this program, we hope that we'll be supporting in the order of about 100 SMEs across that, who are themselves seeking to develop innovations across the entire climate portfolio. If I can just move to the next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, this is a collaborative venture with the University of Birmingham. Both the Catapult and the Birmingham University have worked together on a number of ventures over the years, so we're very familiar with each other's capabilities, assets and people. In the Catapult, for instance, I think we talked earlier, but we've got around about 230 net zero consultants to draw upon through Birmingham. We've got assets at TEP and Birmingham University. Only a few months ago have now opened their innovation hub, which is a £20 million investment at Tyseley, where there'll be research facilities and training and educational support facilities for SMEs working in this space. So we've got a great physical asset, tremendous team of people being deployed into Tyseley, and to draw upon and to merge with the Catapult's proven incubation programs. What we've also done between us now is pulled together a governance structure, we've pulled together a delivery platform, and we've been able over the early summer months to launch our first incubation challenge call under the SIP platform. If I may, we can just move on to the next slide. That challenge call went out, as I say, in sort of May, June of this year. We had a fantastic response. We had some great organisations to look at for our first year. We were looking to recruit, or we did recruit 13, and you can see all of them in front of you on this particular slide. It was a pretty demanding selection process because, again, we're looking across a considerable scope of sectors. So we've got great breadth amongst the 13 SMEs which were selected. We've got people who are working in the digital energy space. We've got people who are looking at creating digital platforms to integrate data to support clients' ESG and carbon reporting, so that those individual businesses can actually report on real developments to enhance their CO2 emission levels. We've got businesses working in the EV sector, both at the charge point level, charge point areas, and also within the battery sector. We've got people who are working in the electricity network and looking at grid resilience, and some of the emerging cybersecurity risks of charging your cars at home, which I think is fantastic. And we've also got SMEs who are looking at the usages of hydrogen. We've also got within that space one who set the land speed record for the fastest steam-powered vehicle a few years ago, and now looking at bringing that technology to the railway. So maybe we'll have some interesting steam-powered traction vehicles over the next few years as well. But this does give us a great portfolio to work with, and some of these organisations are very much at the beginning of their journey, and some of them are looking at scaling up. So it's been a challenge for us to pull together a programme to be able to provide impacts across that breadth. But between Eric, who will be mentoring approximately half of the SMEs in front of you, and myself, I think we've got some great businesses to work with. If we can just move on to the next slide, please. So what does the programme look like? The way in which the parties wanted this to be structured was around a phase 1 and a phase 2 programme of work. So we're developing a collaborative masterclass structure where we're delivering over the course of the next 6 months a series of masterclasses to provide business skills, to provide specialist workshops to address individual SMEs, We'll be introducing the SMEs to the regulatory environment in which they're operating. We'll be drawing upon the Energy Systems Catapult's export and international team, and the digital team as well, to provide people with an overview of what the data and access to data looks like within the energy market, and how they can digitize and make use of it. So we've got a really packed portfolio of services to deliver in the first 6 months. That's also overlaid by the research and development program at the university that we'll be drawing and introducing the SMEs into. And it'll also be overlaid with support from HSBC, from their relationship managers, to provide people with visibility of funding requirements and access to funding, and equally giving SMEs access to the HSBC's client network. And we think that we've got a quite unique offering here, where we're bringing together some great resources from the four organisations, including Tyseley, to effect the growth of the SMEs taking part in the programme. We will be then, after the first phase, selecting approximately 5 SMEs to go on to a second phase, which will be a lot more focused on one-to-one support tasks to address particular barriers, to address particular relationships they want to develop. And at the end of this 12-month program, all of the SMEs will obviously graduate into the alumni program, but we'll also be providing them with an opportunity to apply into the World Wildlife Fund's Impacto program, where perhaps 1 or 2 of these SMEs will be given an opportunity to work on a global platform with the World Wildlife Fund. So I think that's an exciting step off for a couple of the businesses to explore how they could develop and deploy their innovation on a global platform. So if I can just move on to the the next slide. Yeah, I just wanted to introduce a little bit about one of the partners here, and this is the Tyseley Energy Park. The Tyseley Energy Park is based in East Birmingham. It's a mature industrial location, privately owned, and it has been developing itself over the last number of years as a key hub in the West Midlands for energy entrepreneurs. It's got on-site waste from energy production. It's soon to support hydrogen production. It's got capability around EV charging. It's got fantastic rail links. It's got ambitions to develop microgrids. It's got access to the East Birmingham corridor, which has got a considerable population of West Midlands homes and other industrial centres. So we've got a great facility. This is where the University of Birmingham have located its innovation hub. So what the university is doing to align to that hub is to then create a physical incubator, and hopefully over the course of this programme draw SMEs to be located within the incubator, and make use of some of the assets and programs which TEP are very keen to develop. So that's an asset, I think, open to be further explored, but it makes the West Midlands quite a unique centre, where we're bringing a university, a physical industrial space, great support from both, and with the incubation and acceleration skills of the Catapult, to support SMEs' journey over the next 2 years. I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say, Paul, about the programme. I'm sure in the Q&A in a moment there'll be 1 or 2 questions.
So unfortunately we've hit the buffers now, but the just very quickly. So Irene, there is a question in the chat. I don't know if you're able to perhaps answer that through the chat, and then there's just if we just take the one question from Jason Palmer for you, Neil, which is, are you able to pinpoint the difference between the SIP and ESE's Innovator Challenges from an SME perspective?
I think that the SIP brings different relationships. It brings the university's research skill set. it provides us with access to partners. And I think that's a key difference in terms of the incubation, business skills and mentoring. They're great assets, and we'll obviously be developing those. But I think it's the partnerships that we're able to bring in this program.
Yeah, thank you. And question from a very familiar name there, Mark Stone, who used to work at the Energy Systems Catapult. Good to hear from you, Mark. So are there opportunities to engage outside of the program? Absolutely. We didn't get the chance really to talk about universal support today, but the first tier of the Energy Launchpad is what we call universal support. And I think Eric briefly touched on this, but that's free to access. And the best way to link in with that is through our Energy Launchpad portal. I did post in the chat room the email address there as well, so you can also reach out to us through that email. But the portal is a great way to get access to a range of other initiatives, linkages to international events or other calls and programs that we might be promoting. So, and then there's lots of other ways in which we can introduce you to other parts of the team to engage directly through the various different things that we are doing. And we do, yeah, as I say, sort of feeding into Mark's clarification there as well, that we do want to start to build up more collaborative working, and the portal again, we're looking to move into more collaborative engagement there to try and stimulate where SMEs can even come together to form integrated solutions, which I think is another interesting area to explore, is how we help develop the supply chain through helping innovators come together. So I'm conscious we've run over there. I hope that you found that today's event interesting. Again, thank you very much to all the SMEs that have presented today. Thank you very much to the Energy Launchpad team as well, and to the marketing communications team for all the work they've been doing in terms of setting up today's event. And I wish you a very nice rest of the day, and thank you again for joining us. Bye.